Alright guys, we're back again. Today a homeowner gave us a call saying her toilet was leaking and there was all water all over the floor. So once we show up there, we turn the water off and we start taking out the toilet because we think we're going to replace a wax seal. So we took out the toilet and we started diagnosing it, and we determined it's definitely not the wax seal that's leaking and it's something else. So we dig a little deeper. We tell the homeowner we got to open up the ceiling, and we determined it was the lead bend that was leaking. As you can see, it's been leaking for a very long time. There was a little pinhole on the lead bend, and then also it was slit between the flange and the lead bend. The subfloor is all rotted out, so we definitely have to take care of this ASAP. So customer said, do whichever you gotta do. So we decided we're gonna start cutting the lead bend now and change everything to PVC. Once I cut the lead bend out, I saw the subfloor, and we definitely had to fix this before putting the new flange on, because if not, the flange is not going to screw onto anything. So I start tackling the lead bend, and we'll figure out the floor a little later. So I go check my truck to see if I have a donut to put into the cast iron, and I don't. So I decided to show you guys another method in case you run into a jam and you don't have that donut. This is another method you could use, and it works pretty good, and it takes a little time, but it works flawless. First thing I do is I do a couple slits until I hit the brass sleeve. That way I know where to cut the lead flush with the brass sleeve. Once I cut it flush with the brass sleeve, I get my cold chisel and start chipping away at the lead. This is real simple. Lead is real soft. With the proper chisel, the lead just peels off. I have a nice cold chisel, which I always sharpen with the grinder, make a nice sharp tip. That way it cuts into the lead. As you can see here, it just chews up just like a knife, hot knife and butter. So work through it nice and easy all around. I use a chisel. Also, I use a screwdriver if I need to get far in there. You have to make sure you remove every single little bit of the lead. You cannot leave no lead, especially inside the sleeve, because if not, your toilet is going to clog up real easy. So use the Sawzall, just cut up any excess lead. Do not cut the brass sleeve, because if you cut the brass sleeve or you bend the brass sleeve, then you really have to go out and get the donut and take the brass sleeve out and then start from scratch again. So just take your time, work around it. It's real simple. It's just tedious work, but it works flawless. So chip around. As you can see here, inside the brass sleeve is going to come out any second now. Just work at it real slowly, and it pops right out. Once that pops out, you don't have to worry about anything inside, because once you take that lead out, it's nice and smooth inside. Now you just concentrate on the outside, because that's where the no-hub is going to go. So go with the chisel all around. Make sure you remove all the lead as close as possible to the brass. You have to make sure it's nice and smooth. So what I do, once you chip out all the lead, I get my favorite tool, which is the torch, and light it up. Once you light it up, you don't have to heat it up so much, because lead melts real easy. Don't heat it up a lot, because if not, you're going to melt the joint and you're going to have bigger issues, and you're going to have to go get that donut. So just melt it up a little, enough to melt the lead of where the lead bend was connected to, and just wipe it. Once you wipe everything clean and you have no big chunks of lead, get an emery cloth and just clean it up. Make sure it's nice and smooth, that you don't feel no nubs of lead, and bring it down with the emery cloth. Once you bring it down with the emery cloth, get the no-hub and slap the no-hub on. So in this case, I had to rebuild the floor, like I said, because it was all rotted out. So I go to the truck, cut a piece of plywood up there so I could screw it up in there, and I have somewhere to screw the flange, and it's going to be nice and sturdy. So I get a piece of 3/4, cut it up there, and screw it all in there. I use a couple screws, because again, the subfloor is all rotted, so I got to make sure that plywood gets secured to something. And I found good chunks of meat. I put screws all over the place, so it's not going to go anywhere. Especially when I screw that flange in, it's going to act like a little sandwich, and it's going to be bomber proof. So once I'm all done with that, I tell my guy, go grab the hole saw so you can drill that hole out so we can start setting the flange. Once he drills that, I can start mocking everything up. So I know a couple video guys, you guys say, do I dry fit? I don't dry fit. This is a perfect example of what I do. So as you can see here, I have a closet bend 90 with a test piece and a street 22 to it. I hold it up to measure the 4-inch piece. Once I measure that 4-inch piece, I glue it onto the 90 and I tighten up the nut hub. I tighten up the nut hub snugly, not super tight, because I need to be able to move it so I could determine the angle that I'm going to. So once I snug it up, I grab my test piece again with the 22 and put it onto the 90. I use this just to determine the angle. This is not the piece that I'm going to use. Once I determine the angle, then I measure for the piece that I need. Once I measure that piece, once I cut that piece, I glue it onto the 22 and then I glue it onto the 90. I don't measure the piece, then dry fit it, put it back onto the 90. No, that's dry fitting to me. So I use the test piece to measure. Once I measure the piece, then I glue it together. So then I slide the level in there, make sure it's a proper level, snug up the nut hub, and I'm ready to go. Then I go up and I'm going to set the flange. So as you guys see here, there's a little red spacer that I had to use because the old flange was below the tile. I like my flanges to sit on top of the tile. So I had to use a little spacer on one side, because if not, the flange was going to be in the air. So once I put that spacer in there, it was like about 1/4 inch thick, and I measured the piece and I glue it onto the flange. Once I glue it onto the flange, then I glue it onto the fitting. Once I glue it onto the fitting, always guys, just make sure to give it a little quick twist on any PVC you glue. That way you know the glue's all around the pipe. All right. So once that's all glued up, it's nice and flush with the tile floor now. Get your deck screws, your galvanized screws, stainless steel screws, whatever you guys use. Just make sure you use screws that are not going to rust, because if not, it's going to be pointless. You got a nice stainless flange, and if you got screws that rust, the toilet is just going to be wobbling all over the place and it's going to be useless. Customer's going to call you back and saying the toilet's loose and you did a horrible job. So screw it in. Make sure you use all the holes. There are like 6 holes on the flange. Screw them all. If you have tile, grab your hammer drill, drill through the tile, and then screw it in. Just don't skip a screw, because it's there for a reason. If it has 6 screws, use 6 screws. All right, guys. So like I said, I had to drill to the tile just for 1 screw. Everything else, it was pure wood. So once that's all done, my guy comes in after me. He's gonna clean up all the mess that I made. He makes sure there's no old silicone on the floor. Make sure the toilet has no old silicone on it, and he resets it. New Johnny bolts, new wax seal, and a new stainless steel supply line. I didn't videotape it the way we do it, but I'll show you on the next video. So we're here on the bottom again. You can see the floor, subfloor. I sistered it up, so that way the flange has somewhere to screw up, and the PVC is nice and clean. This nut hub works flawless if you don't have that donut. And if you're having a jam and you have the nut hub, use the nut hub trick. It works flawless. As long as you have the right size nut hub. You can't use a regular nut hub. You got to use a termination nut hub from brass to PVC. So my guy was all done upstairs, so I decided to go check it. And look at that. It's nice and clean. Nice bead of caulk, new caps, and a new stainless steel washer. Customer super happy. And I told them, listen, we're going to send our contractor here, and he's going to close up the ceiling. He's going to put new sheetrock, spackle, and paint for you. Customer was super happy that I told her that, and definitely want her for the next one. She'll call us. If you need a left jersey, need some plumber work done, residential or commercial, let us know. See you on the next one. See ya.